Hello Year 6, this is Mrs Pratt with your science lesson for this week. And this week we're going to be learning all about the circulation system. For this lesson you will need a pencil, a copy of the diagram that's been attached to your science planning this week, the table, and if you want to go on to the extension task today, a diagram of the heart. So you'll have 3 documents that you might have printed out. However, if you haven't had a chance to print them out, you can quickly draw some of the systems as you go along. So you'll have this diagram to be labelled. You'll also have this table which you can fill in, but alternatively you can draw on a piece of paper. And if you get onto the extension task, you will need this diagram of the heart, where there is a harder challenge diagram to label also. So I'm going to get you to pause the video now, just to get yourself ready for the things that you will need for this lesson. Okay, well today we're going to be labelling, describing and explaining the functions of the circulatory system. Now some of you might know quite a bit about this already and some of you might not know very much, but all of you will have a chance to label things and describe things and explain things as you go along and hopefully learn something new. So we're going to start with a little bit of a true and a false activity. Now I've got some statements on the board in front of you, and these statements are for you to read through and decide whether they are true or false. Now I will read them through to you just in case you are finding that tricky, but as I do, have a think, are these statements true or false? An average adult will have around 5 litres of blood in their body. There are about 60,000 miles of blood vessels in the average human body. That will go twice around the world if you laid them end to end. It takes about 20 seconds for blood to circulate your entire body. The heart produces enough electrical energy in 1 minute to run a 60-watt light bulb. The heart is an involuntary muscle, meaning that you cannot control it. And on average, the heart will beat around 3 billion times in your lifetime. So what do you think? If you need some extra time, pause the video and decide. Okay, well you might have already guessed this, or you might know, but actually all of these statements are true and they're quite fascinating ones, and we'll probably come back to some of the facts around these statements as we move through the lesson, but it's quite amazing to see some of these facts are all actually true. So let's move on to what the circulation system's all about and what it involves. So, your circulation system is made up of 3 parts: the heart, the blood vessels and the blood itself. And we're going to be exploring all of these 3 parts in the lesson as we go through and learning a little bit about what they do and their function and where they are in the body. So we'll start off with a little bit of a quiz to see if you can think about where your heart is and see if you can point to where your heart is now. See if you can find out where you think it is. You might even be able to feel it within your body. Okay, so hopefully you will have discovered that your heart is in the centre of your body, in the centre of your chest, but actually it's slightly to the left. Many people think it's right in the middle. Actually it veers over slightly to the left, so that's where you'll find your heart within your body. And there are other organs which are involved in the circulation system that are not directly involved, but they form part of the system. And some of these things are also parts of your body that benefit from the circulation system too. So if you go to your diagram now, this is the first activity, and it starts off quite simple and straightforward, and hopefully you'll all be able to do this quite easily. So we've got some labels along the side: your heart, your lungs, your muscles and organs in the body. And the first job for you to do is just put those labels in the right place on your diagram. Now just bear in mind that this diagram isn't as it would be in your body, because you'll find that your lungs actually are surrounding and around your heart area. So this has been expanded out this diagram so we can see all the different parts, and that might have given you a clue about where to put your labels. So I'm going to pause the video now and have a go at labelling the heart, lungs and muscles and organs in the body and where they are. Okay, well that should have been quite easy to do. So straight away you should have labelled your heart, up here are your lungs, and then this here represents the muscles and organs in your body, which all are linked to the circulation system and all the blood that moves around. And that, just as a point here, it's called the circulation system for a reason. If you think about the word circulation, it's got the word circle in there because it goes around and around like a circle does. Okay, well we're going to watch a short video now which will hope to bring alive a little bit about how the circulation functions, and particularly the function of the heart within it.
The heart is a pump, and the blood goes round and round and round all the time. And why does it do that? Why can't it just have a rest? Well, the blood has to be kept moving around all the time because it's the body's delivery system. Every possible part of the body has to be supplied with oxygen and food and water. And the veins and arteries are like roads going all the way through your body, with the blood cells like delivery vans. The body is all the time shouting out, "Over here! Delivery needed! I need oxygen! I need nutrients!" That means that the vans are very busy indeed, all the time. So it's a good job we've got the circulatory system to transport nutrients, water and oxygen to the entire body. Right, come on heart, back to work, quick!
Okay, so we are now going to think about the blood and the blood vessels that are in the important parts of the circulation system. The first being that we need to know the blood vessels that will carry the blood around our body. And you may have noticed in the last video there was a mention of the two particular blood vessels. If you didn't hear them, you might want to go back and listen to the video again. But don't panic, because there's another video coming up that explains further how the blood vessels function within our body.
Inside you, there is an amazing network of blood vessels, the tubes that carry blood all around your body. Every part of the body needs oxygen, food and water. The blood vessels are a bit like roads going around a city with deliveries, while the veins take away waste. Do you know how many roads there are in just one person? Well, if we could take them all apart and lay each section out in a straight line, it would go all the way around the world twice! Of course, you could only drive on it in a very, very, very small car.
So you might have heard from that clip that there are two main ways in which the blood is carried around the body in blood vessels. One of these being the arteries. Now the arteries take blood away from the heart. If you think about the letter A, a capital letter A, you can sort of see in this diagram how it's pointing downwards away from the heart. And the word away as well might help you remember that. And the veins are the blood vessels that take the blood to the heart. I'm going to watch another short video here which will introduce you once again to these two blood vessels, and also introduce you to a third so that you can add them to your diagram in a bit.
When blood exits our heart, it flows through our whole body through blood vessels, and there are three types: arteries, veins, and capillary vessels. Arteries deliver oxygen and nutrients-rich blood to all our organs in our body. Veins take that blood, low in oxygen, back to the heart, and the capillary vessels, which are very small connected arteries with veins and cells. Fun fact! Do you know approximately how much a human heart weighs? Well, it's 450 grams.
Okay, so you'll also have heard about the capillaries, and they're just tiny blood vessels that can carry blood between arteries and veins and individual cells within the muscles and organs in our body. So here we go back to our diagram again. So you've already got on your diagram labelled the lungs, the heart, the muscles and organs in the body. And your next job is to think about where the arteries, veins and capillaries might be on the diagram. Pause the video while you have a go at labelling these on your diagram. Okay, so you will have remembered, hopefully, that the arteries take blood away from the heart. So I put my arteries labelled here on my diagram because the blood at this point is moving away from the heart. The veins carry the blood back to the heart, the deoxygenated blood, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Might have given you a bit of a head start clue there. Remember, veins with that capital letter pointing us back to the heart. And the capillaries, we've just found out, are those very small, tiny blood vessels that transfer the blood from the arteries to the veins within our body. Okay, we're just going to go for a little bit of a recap now, so you can just think about how this system is all working together. We're just going to watch another video which kind of puts into context the heart, the lungs, and how the blood travels round through the blood vessels around the body.
The heart sits within the chest cavity between the lungs and is about the size of a fist. Essentially, it is a muscle that is a really powerful pump. The heart takes in blood that is low in oxygen from the body, pumps it through the right side of the heart and onto the lungs. In the lungs, this blood passes through very small blood vessels and absorbs oxygen. The now freshly oxygenated blood is pumped back through the heart again, and then onto the rest of the body. Inside the heart, there are valves which open to let blood through, and close to stop the blood from flowing backwards. The blood is pumped through blood vessels onto all parts of the body, where the oxygen provides fuel for the muscles and organs.
Well, I think it's always quite fascinating to see the inside of the body and see actually how the blood is moving around and how the heart is pumping. It did also mention in that video a little bit about how the blood is oxygenated and deoxygenated throughout the body, and how that goes through the heart and lungs to gain oxygen again and then go back through the heart to the rest of the body. So if we just have a look at oxygenated blood contains oxygen as it's titled, and it's mainly found in the arteries. Deoxygenated blood does not contain oxygen. The oxygen's already been absorbed and used for fuel in the body to get us to function and to work and to give us energy to do the things that we need to do. And the deoxygenated blood then has to return via the heart to the lungs to get more oxygen again. Now, this is mainly found in oxygenated blood in the veins. It's not actually blue, it's just a darker red colour. But often in diagrams you see it in a blue colour so that you can distinguish between the oxygenated blood and the deoxygenated blood. So your next very quick task, your job is to go back to your diagram and add on the labels deoxygenated and oxygenated blood so that we can see about where it is in the body. You might want to put it in more than one place. Pause the video and have a go at doing that yourself. Okay, so you should have put somewhere on this side of the diagram oxygenated blood. So this blood is oxygen rich. It's being carried to all the places in the body that it's needed so that it can provide the fuel that we need to function. And once that has been used, we end up with deoxygenated blood, and this blood needs to be carried back to the lungs via the heart so that it can get oxygen again. And that's why the system is called a circulatory system, because it goes round and round collecting oxygen and then taking deoxygenated blood back through the heart to the lungs to get more oxygen. And it goes on, the process goes on. Obviously the blood doesn't just carry oxygen, and we'll talk about that in the next bit of the lesson, but that's one of the main functions of the blood and the blood vessels, to carry that blood around the system, to carry the oxygen that we need and to take back the deoxygenated blood so it can be replaced. So your diagram will probably look a little bit busy now. It's got quite a few labels on it. You will need some space around the outside because we're going to be continuing using this diagram as we move on through the lesson. So the next thing we're going to be thinking about is the blood itself. And some of you might be a bit squeamish at this point. I've tried to keep it as less diagrams as possible, particularly those who feel a bit faint at the sight of blood. But blood is important. It's got very many functions. I wonder if you can think of any of its functions. Have a think now. Maybe you could jot some down. Now you should have already known some of the functions because we've talked about them as we've gone through the lesson so far. But one of them is obviously it transports oxygen to the cells and carried by the red blood cells. So the oxygen is carried through the blood cells to the parts of the body that's needed. But blood also carries nutrients, food to the cells. So that's something else that the blood function has. One of the other functions of the blood is transporting waste away from the cells, including the waste carbon dioxide, the gas that we don't need in our body and we want to expel. And the blood helps protect the body from infection with the use of white blood cells. Finally, it helps keep the body temperature at 37 degrees Celsius so that it can keep that regulation of temperature within our bodies so we don't overheat. So I wonder what is in the blood. Well, you might have heard some of the things already that are inside the blood, and we're going to now watch another short video which will hopefully show you some other things that you might find in your blood. I wonder if you want to, as you listen to the video, note down some of the things you notice are in our blood.
Blood gets around our bodies through a system of blood vessels. To picture the blood vessels, imagine a busy network of roads. And those roads are always full of little vans, which are busy making deliveries. And rubbish trucks, picking up rubbish. And police cars, looking out for intruders. We have a suspect heading full speed towards the stomach. Require immediate backup. Your blood has different cells with different jobs. Some cells do repairs if you get a cut. Red blood cells deliver oxygen and take away rubbish. And your white blood cells are like police, looking for germs. There's a lot going on inside you.
Okay, so towards the end of the clip you heard that there were some different blood cells that have different functions within our body. We have red blood cells which transport the oxygen and take away the rubbish that we don't need, the carbon dioxide. White blood cells protect against diseases. Blood platelets help our blood to clot and can repair a cut. So that's when you get those scabs when you've cut your skin. Those are blood platelets working to repair the cut that's happened. One of the things we often don't hear so much about is plasma, and plasma is what which is the liquid that carries these cells, and it also transports important nutrients to the body. Now, you will need your table sheet for the next thing, but if you haven't had a chance to download this or print this off, don't worry. Pause the video and give yourself a chance to make yourself a table like this. One side is components of the blood, the other side is their function. I've already started filling in this table, and you might want to copy the information in for yourself too. Pause the video so you can start getting yourself ready with this table or drawing it. Okay, now your next job is quite a straightforward one. Where there is a missing gap in the table is where you will need to fill in some information. This side you will need to put in a component of blood: white blood cells, red blood cells, platelets or plasma. On the other side of the table, some of them have been filled in for you, but for the ones that are empty, can you think of the description that will go into that spot? How could we describe platelets? And how could you describe red blood cells? If you're struggling with this, go back in the video slightly and have a look at the slides previously so that you can fill it in. Pause the video to fill out the table. Okay, so hopefully you've been able to do this successfully. You get yourself a different colour pen and tick the definitions that you've managed to insert or the component of blood that you've labelled. So white blood cells are those that help protect us against diseases. Platelets help the blood to clot and repair a cut. Plasma is the liquid that carries the blood cell and other nutrients, and red blood cells transport oxygen and take away rubbish. So along with this table, you now have quite a lot of information about the circulation system. The final job that you have to do is have to listen very, very carefully to my explanation of the way that this circulation system works. And once I've finished, your job will be to provide detailed captions to each part of the process. So your label diagram already looks a bit like this, and around the edge you are going to have maybe some text boxes. Please try and keep it as neat and organised as possible, that explain what is happening at each part of the process. Now I'm going to be explaining it in 4 stages. You might go away and research and find out a little bit more information that could add to your captions to describe what's going on in the diagram. That is up to you. On the sheet that you have been given, for some of you that might find this tricky, I have given you some captions that you might want to add to your diagram so that you can cut and stick them in the appropriate spots. That's a very easy job to do, but if you want it more challenging, you can just listen to my explanation and create your own captions for this diagram yourself, or you can go and research further and make your own captions on the diagram, and then send this into your teacher, which they will be very impressed to see the knowledge that you have for the circulation system. Okay? Hopefully you're ready to get started. You might want to take notes as we go through. Remember, my notes are just basic and the things that I share, so you might have some more research that will add more detail yourself. So the first stage in the circulation system is that your heart pumps blood with carbon dioxide to your lungs. The blood then picks up oxygen from the air that you have breathed in and exhales the carbon dioxide waste out into the atmosphere. The blood, which is now carrying oxygen, travels back to your heart. The heart gives the blood a second push. Now it is sent around all the body to the different organs and tissues that need it. Finally, the blood travels back to the heart with carbon dioxide, and it all begins again. So as a quick summary, deoxygenated blood is pumped from the heart to the lungs. The blood receives oxygen and is pumped back to the heart. The oxygenated blood is then pumped to the rest of the body. The oxygen leaves the blood to be used in the body, and the deoxygenated blood goes back to the heart. Now your job is to provide detailed captions to each part of the process. Yours might look a little bit like mine, particularly if you're cutting and sticking the captions onto your diagram. Pause the video and add on your captions now. If you want to go back, you could listen to the explanations again so you can see what you need to provide in your caption detail. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit now about what happens inside the heart. Now, for some of you, this might be an extra challenge, and as I said at the beginning, some of you might not be doing this extension to the session, but some of you might have enjoyed learning about the heart and the circulation system already and might want to extend your knowledge. So for this, you will need these sheets. A heart diagram where there are 3 challenges on them. Challenge 1 will be using the vocabulary to label the parts of the heart and to colour code with different coloured oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. The harder challenge will be to use the labels below the diagram to find out some of the more technical names of various parts in the heart. And a harder challenge than that, the hardest challenge, is there is a link to a lovely clip which explains the process of the heart going through the chambers, or you can do your own research to add some explanation captions around your diagram to explain the process further. So with that in mind, we're just going to watch a very short video that might help you with the basic understanding of what's going on inside the heart. After this video, you might decide that gives you enough information to have learnt what happens inside the heart itself and the heart as a pump, and that's where you may stop the lesson. Some of you, however, might then move on to one of the 3 challenges that are linked to labelling inside the heart diagram.
The heart is divided into 2 parts, the right part and the left part, separated by a cellular wall, so they are not connected internally. Each one of these parts has 2 chambers or cavities. The upper cavities are called right and left atrium, and the lower cavities are called right and left ventricle. The heart also has 4 kind of doors, which are called valves. These valves open to let blood in, and they close so this blood can't go back. Now we've got to know the most important parts of the heart, but do you know how it works? It all commences in the right atrium, where the deoxygenated blood, meaning it has very little oxygen and nutrients, enters the heart. Then it goes through the first valve up to the right ventricle. Once it is here, the heart sends the blood directly to the lungs, and it's in this moment where the blood is oxygenated, and it's filled with oxygen and nutrients. When it is already oxygenated, it goes back to the heart, reaching the left atrium, from where it will pass through the 3rd valve until the last cavity, the left ventricle. Finally, the heart sends this now oxygenated blood through the fourth and last valve towards the rest of the body, and it starts again.
Okay, so over to you to label that diagram if you're ready for that challenge. Look forward to hearing from you and seeing your diagrams and the way that you've explained the circulation system. Bye for now.